Pranam Partho. In our last talk, we spoke about what inspirations we can draw from Gita into our running of businesses or work life, etc. And we spoke about some very interesting principles there. Today, I would like to touch upon our day-to-day lives, our family, household, friends, working with them, dealing with them, living our day-to-day lives. What are the key lessons or inspirations from Gita that we can draw, which can help us lead a better life? Let's just start with the family first. If you have any ideas or thoughts, what are the inspirations for leading a better family life?
At a very elementary level of the Gita, living in the family would mean living one's dharma of the grihast, which would include the more specific dharmas like putra dharma, the dharma of the son, matri dharma, pitra dharma, the dharma of the husband and the dharma of the wife, the dharma of the brother. These are all individual dharmas within the larger set of household dharmas, grihastha dharma. So to know and understand one's grihastha dharma and to fulfill it to the best of one's abilities, to do whatever needs to be done to fulfill the dharma, kartavyam karma as the Gita calls it, and to do it as selflessly as one can. When I say selflessly, what do I mean? I simply mean that done as an offering to the divine and not just for one's own ego needs and ego gratification. So if I am fulfilling or serving my mitra dharma with you, let's say, the dharma of a friend, or acharya dharma, the dharma of the teacher, then A, I should do it as well as I can. B, I should do it not to satisfy my ego or yours, but as an offering to the divine in me and the divine in you, as an offering to Krishna in me and Krishna in you. And C, to then leave the results, the outcome of our interactions in whatever relationship to Krishna. If I can do all this all together in all conditions and circumstances, then yes, I'm following the way of the Gita in my family life. And almost the same thing applies to your professional life, where again you fulfill the dharma of the professional. You fulfill that was the grihastha dharma. This is also grihastha dharma, to earn money for yourself and your family and your community. Calm, earth. So calm and earth have to be aligned with dharma to lead you beyond all this to the higher stage of your evolution. So to keep that ideal in mind when you work, you earn money, yes, but again you don't earn money just for your self-gratification, not just to fulfill your own needs and the needs of those around you. You have a higher responsibility. So you keep that in mind and you earn money. You generate wealth. In the sense of the Gita or the yoga, one replaces the concept of earning money for oneself or one's family with the concept of generating wealth for the community. And again, you do it as an offering to the divine and not for self-gratification. And if you're doing it as an offering to the divine, you don't get so attached to the results. Then you're not so concerned all the time with what's going to happen. Will this succeed? Will I succeed? Will I fail? And all these things that always plague the human mind. None of that should be there. If you really offer it to the divine, none of that can happen. So then you're doing it with a clean mind and heart. And whatever happens then happens in the divine's consciousness. Is up to the divine. what he does with it. So that would be the way of the Gita in one's work.
Many people I know in today's world would do right for themselves, maybe at best to their families. They extend it to the families. In a country like India, there's still some family culture, or some countries there's the culture of being with the family, loving the family, taking care of the family. But when it comes to the community, it tends to be more separated by some layer of it's just separated by, in a way that you don't love the community the same way you love your family.
Yes.
Or you may not do as much for the community as much as you might do for your family. And sometimes there are conflicts of also. But we barely, one of the reasons why there are challenges in the society is that people don't care beyond themselves or beyond their families. And the communities are suffer because what I decide is good for me or my family, but may not be good for the community, right? And this, as a simplest example, is, if I may take a very mundane example, the moment we clean our house and we leave the dust outside the house, we are keeping our house clean, but outside on the streets we're making it dirty, and that's part of the community. And sadly, somehow, or through karma's cause and effect, it does come back with the wind back into the house also.
Obviously, yes.
But this community is a challenge in today's life. Thinking for the community, thinking for the holistic interest of everyone around, is somewhere where we seem to be lagging. Right? How could this be brought back? It's a big change that needs to happen. Maybe it goes down to the education, the moral values, the early learnings of such things. But why do you think that's lacking, and could anything be done to deal with that?
If you're talking in the context of the Gita, it's again a question of expansion. Gita is a yoga. It's a movement towards self-realization, the realization of the divine. And any movement towards the realization of the divine, Brahma, is a movement of expansion. So one has to keep expanding one's consciousness all the time, which is clearly not happening in today's day and age. Instead of expansion, what I can sense everywhere is a shrinking. We are becoming smaller and smaller human beings. They say that during the Satya Yuga, human beings were large
and tall, and
even physically, much taller and much bigger. But not so much the physical, because we don't know. But in consciousness, they were large people. They were virat in their sensibilities and in their minds and hearts. But we have shrunk. We are now petty human beings. And we have become so much more selfish. You're saying that the concern with the community, we're lacking the concern with the community. We don't have it. I feel we don't even have much of a concern for the family. There's so much of strife and aggression and jealousy and judgments within a family. What to talk of a community? And then a Vedanti would say that forget about the family. There's so much of strife and disharmony within the individual. How will you establish any harmony with anything or anyone outside of you? So you see, the smaller we become, the pettier we become, the more we impact our families, our societies, communities, and finally the environment we live in, the planet. Everything is shrinking. And I feel more than ever it's time for Vedanta and time for Gita to be brought back center stage, where instead of continuous shrinking, we start expanding outward. That is a widening of the consciousness, and expanding upward. That is a heightening of the consciousness, and expanding inward, which is a deepening of the consciousness. So it is in these ways that we will find Krishna within ourselves, because it's not easy to find Krishna within ourselves. I mean, we can talk about it, we can aspire for it, but the Gita is about actually finding it. The Gita is very realistic, very dynamic and very realistic. It does not concern itself with metaphysics. The Gita is happening on a battleground. You have to win a war. And it's not just a war that you have to win for yourself or for your kingdom. This is a war for humanity itself. That's why it's called a Dharma Yudh. It is the ultimate war for that which is right and true in the world. That's Dharma, the right and true. So the Gita is to be realized in action, in relation, in self-becoming. And that is the message that has to be brought back to, I think, every Hindu, every Indian, every human being, frankly. And the Gita has to be taken out of its socio-cultural and its religious context and made more universal, because the Gita is for everyone. Every living being has to finally come to the way of the Gita. In what language, in what specific format it comes, it doesn't matter.
In some family lives, there are people living together, let's say a joint family of sorts, where parents are there, their kids and their spouses are there, and then there are grandkids, etc. Many times in countries like India, they live together under the same roof due to a variety of reasons. Economic could be one of them. I've heard from others that at times they experience this, that there's a conflict between the, let's say, mother and the wife for a man.
That's a very common one.
Very common one. I've heard of it. I don't know how it happens, but how would somebody who's following Gita deal with that conflict, where eventually it comes down to some, may not be a big issue, maybe just a petty thing here or there, or could be a large thing. There's just a conflict of interest or understanding on both sides from mother and the spouse.
So the Gita is not a... It does not give you a formula to solve family issues or psychological issues or even social or political issues. The Gita is a way of life. The Gita is a yoga. It is a transformation of your way of being, transformation of your consciousness, your attitude, your values. So we have to understand the Gita in that sense. So we can't use the Gita to solve a problem between husband and wife, for instance. Or any relation. What does it mean when we say we follow the Gita? It means that we are growing in the consciousness of the Gita, yes or no?
Yes.
We are growing in the consciousness of the Gita. And what is that consciousness of the Gita? So if we follow the process, the logic of the Gita, then amongst the first things that we have to establish in ourselves, and that is itself a very difficult thing to do, is an equality, a balance, an equilibrium within ourselves. Equal in all situations and circumstances, not being rocked by what in Sanskrit we call the dvandvas, the dualities of existence. This is good, this is bad, this is pleasant, this is unpleasant, this is a fortunate thing, this is an unfortunate thing, this is high, that is low, this is noble, that is ignoble. No. All the pairs of dualities that everyone lives. That is the first thing that has to go, that everything is equal. One has to have an equal understanding, an equality of vision, an equality of understanding, an equality of attitude, an equality of behavior, an equality of life itself. In the Gita, Sri Krishna says that amongst the first definitions of yoga he gives is yoga itself is equality. Yoga itself is known as equality. So that's the first thing. Now suppose you're following that. I'm not even going into the other conditions of the Gita. Just the first one, equality. How to be equal in all situations. That itself is a lifetime challenge. Even the best of us take time to work it out. Because there's so many parts in our being. You know, we have one part of it is pretty enlightened, the other is still very much in the old vital rut, where the mind is repeating its own beliefs and patterns. You know, all that is always happening all through our being. So this equality has to be brought down to the mind, to the vital being, to the emotions, to even the physical sensations. That in itself is a yoga.
Let's say if I'm trying to work on myself and live the way of Gita by establishing samatha and then moving the levels and trying to expand the consciousness, and it's a journey, it's a process, it takes time, it's difficult because we are carrying a lot of baggage with us due to a variety of reasons. And family introduces another level of complexity because they may or may not follow, may or may not want, may or may not have this desire even, or even awareness or acceptance of this way of life. They might be driven by more egos or not in their own way. In the older days, I've heard in stories that people would leave the family for this reason, and they would go into their own samadhis or their own tapasyas and do what they feel is right for their inner desire and work on themselves. But do you think if anybody really wants to go deeper and expand and do the things, live the way of Gita, expand in consciousness, does one need to, and if it's harder, does one need to carry the family along or choose to at least work on himself or herself and maybe then come back into the family? Because with the family, it complicates a bit more.
Remember, the Gita is being practiced on the battlefield, not in an ashram.
Yeah.
Sri Krishna does not give the gyan of the Gita in an ashram, in the forest. He gives the gyan of the Gita on a battlefield, metaphorically in the middle of the battle. Not in the middle really, just before the beginning of the battle. Sri Krishna never intends you to leave the world and go away and become a sannyasi. Sannyas, as we know it, most of us understand renunciation and sannyas very externally and very superficially. That kind of sannyas is not part of the Gita. However, the sannyas that the Gita talks about is an inner renunciation of the ego and the ego only. Think about it. If you have renounced the ego, if there's no ego in you, there is no family in you. Who will you consider your family? If you are working on your ego, personal naam-roop identity, but you're dissolving that. So you're dissolving the identity. Let's take an example. You're dissolving the identity of the son in you. Where is your mother then? You're dissolving the identity of the husband or the wife in you. So where's your spouse then? You're dissolving the identity of the father or the mother in you. So where's your child then? So as your ego dissolves, as you work more and more on your ego, dissolving it, the family dissolves by itself. Now, that does not mean you leave home and go away. I mean, of course, you can do that if you want to. No one stops you from doing it. But then that's where the Dharma kicks in. The Grihastha Dharma, that till a specified period of your life, you have to fulfill your Dharma. But for one who has inwardly renounced the ego and therefore the attachments of the ego and therefore the attachment to outcomes and, all that psychodrama that we live in, all that is gone because you have renounced from inside, renounced the world and renounced the ego. For that person who has renounced the world and renounced the ego, what will you leave and what will you not leave? I mean, is there anything to renounce after that? Because inwardly you've renounced it. So now outwardly, what is there to renounce? And what is there to cling on to? You're liberated from all that. So you continue being in the family and doing the best you can. But now Because you have inwardly renounced everything, you have inwardly become a true sannyasi. You're just doing the dharma that you are meant to do at that point of time in your life, kartavyam karma, doing that which needs to be done. You do it quietly, selflessly, as a sacrifice to the divine. The Gita gives so much of importance to yagna. So as a sacrifice to the divine, and that's it.
And when you're trying to renounce inwardly, but still play the part in the family, let's say, and there's a conflict in the family, say father or mother, let's say they are not getting on, as an example, or brother or spouse or anyone. You are in the middle somewhere, but you don't have a problem with anyone.
Yeah.
There are two people who are having a conflict. Now you have a dharma towards both of them, towards your brother, towards your father.
Right.
Let's say they are not getting on.
Right. It's a very common situation.
Very common situation,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Inwardly, you don't care beyond a point. You can just try to help as far as possible, do the best you can, but beyond a point, you're not attached to it,
Yeah.
as you're suggesting. But how do you deal with if they are, let's say, having an argument, a fight every day of sorts?
See, the thing, Kunal, is we are all very afraid of conflicts.
Yeah.
We don't want conflicts, but that's not the way of the Gita.
Okay. Yeah.
Gita accepts conflicts very much
Okay.
as an essential part and process of human existence.
Okay.
Because we are living in conditions of duality. We are living in conditions of egoism. We are living under the gunas of Prakriti. We are living in ignorance, in delusion, all that. These are conditions of life for us. So, you have to see conflicts as necessary to human existence, however paradoxical that might sound.
Okay.
Without the yuddha happening between Pandavas and the Kauravas, the Dharma yuddha wouldn't have happened. And Sri Krishna wouldn't have to come down to fight for Dharma. The higher Dharma of the next age wouldn't have been established on earth if it were not for that conflict. Conflicts have to happen. You have to accept it. A. B. Conflicts are necessary to cleanse the system. In the Gita, it is, in the Mahabharata, in the Gita, you'll often come across this thing that a conflict is like purification. It's a shuddhikaran, it's purification. Because a lot of things we repress in ourselves, we suppress in ourselves. It's there, but we pretend not to see it for many reasons. No. But if we go on with these conflicts suppressed in us, how long do you think it will take before it erupts and erupts violently? It has to. That's the law of nature. It will erupt. So a person who sticks to the path of yoga, the Gita, Samatha, Vedanta, self-realization, can he or she afford to walk around with suppressed conflicts, thinking that, I'm an ideal person and I should not have conflicts, and conflicts is not good for human beings and there shouldn't be conflicts? Fine, all that is, it sounds very good. It sounds moral and ideal, but you're setting yourself up for failure. Because sooner or later, your whole inner poise is going to be disturbed. So, our yoga gurus our rishis used to say that, let the conflicts happen. It's necessary. In the conflicts, whoever realizes the deeper consciousness will come out of this conflict strengthened, purified. And Dharma will be established. So if you are in a family where conflicts are happening and you're in samabhav, which means you're not taking sides. It's very important in the Gita's sense, samabhav. Samabhav means equality of vision, equality of attitude, equality of understanding, equality of behavior. You cannot take sides. So now you see both of them exactly as they are. Then there's no filter. If you're not taking sides, there's no filter of bias. Right?
No judgment.
No judgment. So you're just seeing the two as exactly where they are and what they are. And then you can see how necessary it is for them to have the conflict. In schools, as I speak as an educator, we often allow children to fight because it's healthy at that age to fight it out. If you repress it, you will end up on the psychiatrist's couch sooner or later. So let conflicts happen. And this applies as much to you and me. If there is conflict within you, don't suppress it. Bring it out. Don't get into the delusion that, you're a sadhak of Gita and therefore you cannot have. No. Let it happen. Bring it out. If that means you have to fight a bit like Arjun, do that too. But let it happen. Trust, as I always say, trust the deeper harmony. Because behind all conflicts is a deeper harmony. We must not lose sight of that.
Is that what Sri Krishna also somehow did in the Mahabharata, that he said, on one side the Kauravas also came to him and took some resources away, some senas and other things, and Arjuna said, be my Sarthi. So he said, whatever you want.
Right.
You want me to be your Sarthi, I'll be with you. You want me to give you the biggest senas on the planet, I'll give you that. And then let it play out. Now, Arjuna was smart that he asked for Shri Krishna and not the material.
Yes, smart, yes.
In some sense.
Wise.
Or wise, yes.
But I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sri Krishna so often allowed conflicts to play out in the Mahabharata.
Yeah.
You think he couldn't have stopped the war if he really wanted to?
Yeah, he could have mediated easily. So if I take, hey, you take this,
so
you take
that logic, extrapolate that logic, and you don't need the universe then.
Yeah.
From the word go, everything can be blissful in a divine consciousness. You don't need the world.
Yeah.
So it's like that.
It's for the delight
The world is what
delight
it
of
is.
the divine.
Yeah, but that itself is very difficult to understand. Then we come to questions like many people have questions about the Gita. That there's so much of suffering going on. There's warfare, bloodshed. The innocent are dying and being raped and killed. How do you explain that in terms of Sri Krishna's delight? You can't. How will you do that? Unless you have a consciousness different from our normal surface human consciousness. So even to answer that question, yes, there is suffering. Who can deny there's suffering? There is injustice. Who can deny that? There is violence. There is rape. There is murder. There is mayhem. To deny that would be foolish. But then to take that as the final reality of the world and therefore there is no God or our God is not perfect, again is equally stupid. We have neither understood the world nor God.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for this enlightening session, Partho.
Thank you so much.
Thank
as
you.
always, Kunal.
Pranam.